If you're a senior citizen and if you're somebody that needs it, I'm all for it. But they have to be very careful because you know the things with bundling and all of the things that are happening with votes by mail, where thousands of votes are gathered. And I'm not going to say which party does it, but thousands of votes are gathered and they come in and they're dumped in a location. And then all of a sudden you lose elections that you think you're going to win. I won't stand for it. Well, we're going to find out about the proof because you're going to see what's going on. And I'm not going to stand for it. It's okay. Absentee voting, great. But this mail-in voting where they mail indiscriminately millions and millions of ballots to people, you're never going to know who won the election. You can't have that. And Nevada's a big state. It's an important state. It's a very political state, and the governor happens to be a Democrat. And I don't believe the post office can be set up. They were given no notice. I mean, you're talking about millions of votes. No, it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. And they're not approving the proper funding for this ridiculous thing that they want to do, which is all mail-in voting. If universal, you could call it mail-in voting. Again, absentee voting is great. You request, I'm an absentee voter because I requested, I got, and then I sent in my vote. So that works out very well. That's what we've had. But now they want to send in millions and millions of ballots. And you see what's happening. They're being lost. They're being discarded. They're finding them in piles. It's going to be a catastrophe.
Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transfer of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and you'll have a we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. We want to make sure the election is honest, and I'm not sure that it can be. I don't know that it can be. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen.
But what is this happening here? Why is Arizona blue? Did we just call it? Did we make a call in Arizona?
Well, let's see.
There's a check mark. Did our decision desk make it? Arizona, 11 electoral votes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, if that's the case, then, guys, when we come back, we'll fill this in. If you lose Arizona, where do you win now? You got to win up here in Wisconsin and Michigan and maybe even Minnesota in order to pull this out, and that's leaving Pennsylvania off the map. And I'll leave that with you guys.
Okay, time out. This is a big development.
Yeah.
The Fox News decision desk is calling Arizona for Joe Biden. That is a big get for the Biden campaign. It's also...
We also, if you look and you see, Arizona, we have a lot of life in that. And somebody declared that it was a victory for, and maybe it will be. I mean, that's possible.
In Arizona, we're going to do it right. It will be free and fair. It will be difficult, if not impossible, to cheat, and it will be easy to vote. 78% of the citizens already vote by mail in Arizona, but we've been doing this since 1992. So over the course of decades, we've established a system that works and can be trusted.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term. We're able to...
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Mr. Vice President, I, Paul Gosar from Arizona.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
I rise up for myself and 60 of my colleagues to object to the counting of the electoral ballots from Arizona.
Is the objection in writing and signed by a senator?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Multiple capital entries! Multiple capital entries!
The objection is not sustained. The Secretary will notify the House of the action of the Senate, informing that body that the Senate is now ready to proceed to joint session with further counting of the electoral vote for President and Vice President.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly
It has been 170 days since Election Day, and the votes are getting counted again.
A third audit of Maricopa County's election results about to get underway. Veterans Memorial Coliseum transformed into a makeshift vote count center to review the results after the Republican-led Senate ordered the audit.
Boxes of ballots shipped in, waiting now to be recounted by hand. It is the latest in challenges to your vote, despite no evidence of any kind of fraud or misconduct.
I think my favorite thing about that, the end of that video, was that it began and ended basically the same way, because you could see the incredulity on the person's face in the news broadcast, and it said they're looking for something which doesn't exist. They're looking for fraud, which doesn't exist, and I can empathize with them, because Susan can tell you I have been keeping an incredible amount of my time has been taken, at least over the course of the past couple of months, keeping up with this, because we had wanted to do a pretty in-depth video on this. And this one is going to be slightly in depth, but because we're on a bit of a time crunch right here, mentioned in the description of this, mentioned that we had this plan for this morning anyways, or for today, this evening anyways, but then of course things leaked last night, things that we already knew, by the way, and I'm going to mention this at the end, because I'm going to have to kind of like speed through this a little bit, which is really difficult to do because there is just so much stuff. People forgot that there's a literal semi-trailer truck thing full of ballot information on private property in Montana. That's just something we just breezed right by. But I want to get to so much, but not going to be able to. But yes, they did finish counting it. They actually finished counting everything, like, I don't know, supposed to be in May, but it was a month and a half ago or something. And now they're releasing all this stuff. I think that their excuse at the time was somebody had COVID somewhere. All right, whatever, COVID happens. The rest of the stuff that went on with this, or is currently going on with this. Sorry, I'm trying to find something and I can't because I always misplace everything. But the biggest thing with this is that they released their report, literally got leaked last night, but they released it this morning, and they're going to be sitting in front of, it'll be in a video call with the the Arizona State Senate. And it's not going to be any kind of challenging of anything. It's not going to be any kind of rebuttals or anything. It's just going to be saying, here is what we found. And if you looked at it from last night, and I'm going to kind of go into this, you find out that President Biden won more. He had more votes, etc. That's never what this was about. This was never, ever, ever, even if the former president, who again was somehow a president, said that it was about overturning an election or something like that. It was never about the election, about overturning an election. Not even one time, not even for 5 seconds was it ever about overturning an election. It was, and I will get to that because I actually want to get into some things, because there's a lot of things that are about this. It wasn't an audit. It couldn't be an audit. The people that were auditing were not certified to do audits. They were nauditors. Aha. And instead of calling it a fraudit, they should have called it a naudit. Better branding. But here's how this all got started. It got started because the former president stoked fears of election fraud. Really from the when he ran in 2016, and he said, "I will only lose if it's rigged. If I lose, it's rigged, and I'll only lose if they've cheated, etc." Things that he has said since. I mean, come on. And then putting things together, and the beginning of this video, you heard him speak about mail-in ballots in April of 2020. And so you're talking, this was just after the primary. At least this was, hey, Maya, this was after the primary. We had the primary in Texas, which was on March 3rd. And then that was right before Susan and I came up here. And then the general election was November 3rd. And so you're right there in, oh, awesome. Good, babes. You're right there in that, it's not like from April to November is right around the corner or anything. Consider this, that right now it is September 24th. November 3rd is not that far away already. But now think back to how much further we've come since like April. You know, we're talking 5-6 months ago. And that's also how long this audit. Again, better branding. Fraudit was good. Audit, because it's not an audit. I'm gonna live with that one. I'm gonna keep that one. That one's a good one for today. I haven't slept in like a day. So the fact that I can do that, you should go to divinedisbelief.live/tips and give us money for that. So let's where did this start outside of the former president fella coming in and saying, hey, the only way I'm going to lose is if they're fraud and all that. And frankly, we actually did win, and and you know, all of that stuff. What did this all come from? And there's an answer to that. That comes from this guy. This guy. This seriously has been elected a bunch of times congressperson from Texas, of all places. Okay. I realize you got like Chip Roy, which is one of the better names in Congress. And you've got Ted Cruz and all of those, but you have Gomer Pyle. Louis Gohmert on November 12th. He went on, there's actually a video. I decided not to get the video, but he was on a video with this fella here in red that looks like he's really mad that his sports team just lost the big game and he couldn't be out there to hit the ball off the tee with them or something. Don't really know. That's Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA. noted and just Pulitzer Prize winning fella right there. An absolute bastion of journalism as the Turning Point USA. He said that there was a U.S. Army raid in Frankfurt, Germany, of this organization that is has servers and stuff named Seidel in Frankfurt, Germany, to where there was a military raid. And what they did was the military busted into this Seidel place and stole a bunch of servers. They stole all of the Seidel servers, which were storing data from the United States election, which had flipped. I'm not lying, by the way. This is the actual, I have to make sure that I get it in order. That had flipped votes from the previous president to Joe Biden, full of servers. And they wanted to hide that stuff. And so they actually went and they got in a firefight. The U.S. military did. And the U.S. military is the bad guy here because the U.S. military, the Army, goes in, gets in a firefight, and takes these servers. So that way they can hide the servers so that Joe Biden is president. Louis Gohmert, I had to put myself back together after saying all that. Louis Gohmert said, I don't know the actual truth of where it began. I know there was a German tweet in German. Good job there, Louis. Good job with that. The U.S. Army came in on Monday, and that was that week of the 12th of November. And remember November. Remember that we were trying to get him so he was going to be the president on the 5th, and it took till the 6th. I remember that. Couldn't done in 2 days. And they took a server. Yeah, Susan. But again, the United States Army is the bad guy. And by the way, if you're wondering, if you have any curiosity about this, no, the United States Army did not seize a freaking German server or a Spanish one or any servers. Eat your own damn food. But especially any servers showing the former president won in a landslide. The evidence for that, either the servers or the landslide, is like evidence of the University of Nebraska basketball having an NCAA tournament win. It simply doesn't exist. Now, Seidel, because they got involved in, they were thrust into this, they actually had to write up something saying, y'all being stupid. And they said, this is what they said. They they simply do not tabulate, tally, or count any votes in the United States. Oh. No matter what Representative Gohmert wants to believe, or wants all of us, or any of us, or some of us, or one of us, or Charlie Kirk to believe, it simply isn't true. And let me just real quick here, because this guy, think of what he has been saying, by the way, that the U.S. Army went in and into Frankfurt, Germany, where Seidel does not have a server, and busted in, got into a firefight, took the server, or the servers, multiple, and hid them, destroyed them, made Joe Biden president. Spoiler alert, over 70 million of us did that one. But saying that happened is is pretty bad. Like, it really is. It's like really a bad thing to say. And you're a sitting member of the United States House of Representatives. You said, yeah, the election was completely fraudulent because the United States military came in and were the bad guys in a situation, got into a firefight, and took the server showing that Donald Trump is actually the winner of the election. Okay, dude, that's pretty bad. You should be like censured for that, at the very least. Now, and thinking of that, if before anybody says that white male privilege is not a thing, which I've actually heard somebody say recently, I'm going to need you to remember that Representative Katie Hill resigned from the House of Representatives because her ex-husband decided to do like a revenge porn thing, which is illegal. Prior to January 6th, I don't know if I could have thought of anything quite as democratically harmful as what this somehow still elected official was saying. And by the way, the title of that article, "No, the Army Didn't Seize a German Server Showing a Trump Landslide," that's the New York Times. As much grief as we rightfully give to the New York Times, they've got better things to do. Like making me a child's version of their crossword puzzle. Anything. Putting something where I can color things and it'll always look good because I'm a good colorer. Anything other than this. But that information doesn't originate with Gohmert. Because that's impossible. Because he's not that crafty or smart. He said he got his info from, quote, former intel people. To which I said, Louis, the intel headquarters in the United States is in Hillsboro, Texas. And I know you've never been here. So, liar. But specifically this fella right here. Retired Air Force Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney. I had to look that one up a few times. In his unfounded version of events, the U.S. Special Forces, this is kind of what I was getting into. U.S. Special Forces died in an attack on a CIA computer facility in Germany that was hiding information about a massive covert effort to flip votes from president previous fella to his opponent, current president guy. Yeah. McInerney, by the way, this all does go into what's happening in Arizona. Then went on a call it a radio broadcast, if you want to. It was with conspiracy theorist known as Brandon House, Howse. It went a little something like this. In his interview, which was preceded by an exclusive first interview with retired Army Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. So, you know, upper echelon elite right here. Michael Flynn, McInerney, just like his name, said that Trump and Attorney Sidney Powell have, quote, got the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion working with them because in all of this, we have not seen any footprints of the DOJ or the FBI, nor the CIA on the friendly side. House did the cool thing of raising the issue of the U.S. Special Forces troops seizing the server farm in Germany. Then, quote, in addition, the U.S. Special Forces Command seized a server farm in Frankfurt, Germany, because they were sending this data from those 6 states. I'm going to just go ahead and guess that they're Arizona and Georgia and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, Nevada. What am I missing here? Ohio? No. I feel like I got all of them. Did I count 6? Like I said, I need a child's crossword puzzle. Said, we're sending this data from those 6 states through the internet to Spain and then into Frankfurt, Germany. Spec Ops seized that facility, so they have those servers and they know all this data that they are providing. Oh, Maya, Sidney Powell was actually a pretty darn good lawyer in Dallas. She really was. She was good at what she did. Don't have any idea how all this came about. And McInerney, I'm always going to say his name wrong, so, I've heard it didn't go down without incident, and I haven't been able to verify that. I want to be careful. It's just coming out, but I understand my initial report is that there were U.S. soldiers killed in that operation. That's a new thing. That's new. Gohmert didn't say anything about being, that anybody had died. Now, that was as a CIA operation. And so that's the very worrisome thing. So House says, but you are saying that that was a CIA facility, and that was where the server was taken from by these special forces, was a CIA facility in Germany. House asked the retired general, who now operates a cloud computing company, and McNerney said, that's correct. Frankfurt, Germany, we have all this information. Let me just tell you real quick, none of that is true. Well, I mean, part of it is. This is something I told Susan back when we were first, kind of putting this stuff together and writing it back in late April, early May. Part of it is true. The part about the 5 dead soldiers, it was 5 of them. But not how these sick individuals want to say. The soldiers that were killed in a helicopter crash were assigned to Task Force Sinai's aviation company, which is not a Spec Ops unit. Only one of the soldiers had ever served in a USASOC unit, a helicopter repairer who had previously deployed as a member of the 160th Spec Ops Aviation Regiment. Staff Sergeant Kyle McKee was not Special Forces qualified, though, and he was no longer assigned at the time of the helicopter crash. They didn't die in Germany. They not even on the same continent. But QAnon basically picked this up and used their deaths as a way to push forward this grotesque conspiracy. By the way, here's the GoFundMe for Kyle McKee. This $49,000 was actually a few months ago. Whenever we snipped that from the GoFundMe, he's one of the soldiers that died in the crash. If you want to think of a silver lining to all of that, I mean, if you want to call it a silver lining, all of that money was raised after the QAnon people lied about him and his death. So, sure. Pretty fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, really, really, really fucked up. But that's how all of this got started. Because there are a few names that come into this. Some folks that got this thing started in Arizona, and they're all connected here. So Arizona, for the first time since 1992, flipped blue. Went to Joseph Robinette Biden. Turns out that guy is the current president. And there was a lot going on with that, especially when one would consider the stop the count, count the votes things going on at the exact same time. I could never have that type of mental, like, I don't know, I just couldn't do that. Like, if you're like, okay, which one are we doing here? But they actually did an audit, by the way, as is required. They did an audit of the state's election, and specifically of the Maricopa County election. Maricopa County, by the way, is the second largest voting district, I think, in the country. 2.1 million votes cast. And they did an audit. They did. Turns out it was accurate. Turns out that their votes were accurate. That the vote counts came from the machines were accurate. And you can see it signed off by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different people. I can count. Give me my child's crossword puzzle. And on there, you can see some of the names. Well, maybe you can see where the names and the signatures are. You can see that the chair that's on there, Libertarian Party. Just below that, that one I believe is the Republican Party. Make sure I get that right, because it might not be the Republican Party. Hold on. Make sure that I don't want to get them wrong. Yeah, Libertarian. Oh, Democratic Party is the third one. The top one, by the way, is certification from the chairperson of Maricopa County. And then you have the Maricopa County Libertarian Party, Maricopa County Democratic Party, the chairperson of the Republican Party of Arizona, and then, of course, you have the Secretary of State. And then that cool Great Seal of the State of Arizona, 1912. So this is actually, this audit was done on November 18th, 2020. And signed off by every single one of the parties that are there. Arizona actually has that. They have like a triple check system. And they found that the results that came in the election were valid. They were correct. And then there is this court document that I just really was trying to make so that it could, let's see. I just did the wrong one. I meant to do myself, but meant to do myself, but or not myself, but whatever. Maybe it'll be me this time. Let me see. His screen? No, make it bigger. I'll make it bigger. There we go. Conclusion. Not only have the plaintiffs failed to provide the court with factual information or factual support for their extraordinary claims, cue Christopher Hitchens, but they have wholly failed to establish that they have standing for the court to even consider them. Allegations that find favor in the public sphere of gossip and innuendo cannot be a substitute for earnest pleadings and procedure in federal court. They most certainly cannot be the basis for upending Arizona's 2020 general election. The court is left with no alternative but to dismiss this matter in its entirety. And that is signed by the Honorable Diane Humatewa. and I probably said that wrong, and I apologize. You know, that's cool and everything. Oh, hey, thanks, Scott. I'd like to say I didn't actually read what your comment says because I don't care. But what I do care about is that you're here. And because hold on, I want to be able to see you. Hey, Scott, how's it going, buddy? Oh, it's good to see you. The fact that you come in here and you watch even for 30 seconds, and then you actually leave a comment, even if it is just like a trolling comment, it helps the algorithm. So as long as you don't say anything offensive, I don't care. I appreciate you being here. You're an amazing person. Good for you. Ballots can't be illegal. They're not alive. But this person right here, though, this Obama judge, right? This person quite obviously could never see things outside of the way that the liberal mindset is, right? We're never going to mind the fact that the person next to her is Amy Coney Barrett. Now, Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Because these were the two female federal court judges that were at the top of, at the time, President Donald Trump's short list of prospective nominees to the Supreme Court. That's interesting. You guys deleting Scott's comments? So I guess that wasn't quite as partisan as they would want that to be. But I do too, Maya. This audit, though, was required. It was the not required. The one that brought in the Cyberninjas was brought in because the state's GOP, the state Senate, brought it to a judge, and they said, "Hey, Maricopa County," and by the way, the Maricopa County, the folks that are there are all but one Republican. My roommate. And so they're all but one of them are Republican. So when we talk about Maricopa County and the folks who oversee elections there, all but one of them, again, are Republican. And around the same time, on April 29th, they actually, the I forget the name of the group, but the like a MAGA group in Arizona tried to get all of them recalled. Every single one of them, they tried to get them recalled because they didn't like how they said, yes, the election was fair and free and accurate. So they tried to get them recalled, but it didn't work. They didn't get enough signatures. They also tried to do the same thing to Doug Ducey. Oh, Doug Ducey was one of those that I had a video of that where he was, if you haven't seen that, I was going to put that in the intro, where if you've seen that, whenever he goes and he certifies Arizona's 11 electoral votes, he has his phone in his pocket, and he's singing like "Hail." It starts ringing "Hail to the Chief" and stuff, because that's what he said he had put the president's ringtone as. And while he was signing and certifying the 11 electoral votes from the state of Arizona, which again, for the first time since 1992, a Democrat won, he silenced it. He silenced the president. It's the first time in the history. The first time in the history of humanity that anybody has ever been able to silence the former president fella. So good job, Doug Ducey, for that. Laugh my ass off. Should have gone to Biden. Yeah, well, there's an opportunity for that in the future. But a judge in Arizona said that what the Arizona State Senate, which supermajority Republicans, was demanding, which was from them, they were demanding the ballots so they could do an actual 100% audit. They were demanding the servers and the passwords. And of course, they were reminded many, many times that they are not connected to the internet or anything like that. They never were. And that's the thing as well. And they were demanding all this information. And the judge said in the end of March, beginning of April, the judge in Arizona said, you have to give that to them. It is legal. And so they were forced, was Maricopa County, to give this stuff to the state Senate. And then you start, this is where the first time we saw this right here, saw some of this. Some of these really cool looking things where it's like the Antifa fears. They were scared Antifa was going to come, that Antifa was going to show up. Ed is scared I'm going to show up everywhere. Don't worry about it. Also, I don't really know what Rose City Antifa is. Sorry, bro. And you'd see where they have the UV lights and stuff like that, because there was this thing that this is a QAnon talking point. This is something they were looking for, something that people in real life were doing, people that could have been governing and helping the people of Arizona, especially the incredibly marginalized people from the indigenous tribes that are forced to live in some of the worst places in the country, and especially in the state of Arizona. They're forced to stay there. The Navajo Nation up there. Instead of doing that, we focused on QAnon talking points like UV lights, because the president of the United States apparently said there's only one way to be able to tell if these are real ballots is if you shine the UV light on them. You'll be able to see the watermark. Never mind, that's not how watermarks work. But those don't exist. So they went and they got this organization out of Florida. Now, I say it's out of Florida. The address for Cyber Ninjas is a P.O. box in Florida. The address for the company is a P.O. box. Now, we know that because the Department of Justice had to send them information, had to send them a letter, and had to send it to their P.O. box because that's the address of their business, Cyber Ninjas. They brought in again, Cyber Ninjas, and we're working with them. And there is the person that what is that guy's, I forgot the name of the CEO of the company. And I'm sorry about that. Usually I'm better than that. But, you know, that happens sometimes. But he was linked to Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell, of course, and Lynn Wood being the folks that realistically pushed the former president to kind of like, in a way, to remove themselves from the opportunity to win in the state of Georgia, to really almost hand the Senate runoff, two seats in Georgia, to Democrats. Now, not the Democrats are going to do a damn thing with it. We've already seen that they actually simply cannot do anything. Arizona, you're doing everything wrong except for fucking Mark Kelly. He's a pretty good guy, apparently. But this guy was linked to, he's the CEO of Cyber Ninja. He wrote a document back in November called Election Fraud, Facts, and Details, supporting files for all the items listed can be found at the following URL, www.itdidn'tfuckinghappen.org. Number 1, foreign influence and national security concerns in U.S. elections. I shit you not, this is what I'm reading off of what he wrote and gave to Sidney Powell, which she was trying to do in court. Number one, the core software utilized by Dominion, the second largest U.S. voting machine vendor, originates from intellectual property of Smartmatic, a company that was founded in communist Venezuela with links to Chavez. 0% of that is true. Like literally 0% of that sentence. And that's just number 1.1. Foreign influence in our elections. Dude, you want to talk about foreign influence? You want to talk about the guy who was trying to do, like, I don't know, a quid pro to get stuff on Joe. Says 1.3 or 1.3 is an affidavit and scholarly statistical paper attest to Smartmatic rigging Venezuelan elections. Look, they don't need Smartmatic to do that. Okay, they basically got a dictator, which we almost had. Smartmatic has also been accused of rigging elections in the Philippines and India, except that's also not true. He said UBS Securities LLC, which, by the way, he says that's who owns Dominion, owner of Staple Street Capital, had a 30% Chinese board of directors with Dominion Voting Systems, intellectual property held in collateral by the Hong Kong Shanghai Business Corporation, People's Republic of China. No. Also, even if they did, who the cares? And then they bring out this person, and this is actually the reason that Dominion is suing Mike Lindell and Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, and I'm certain this person as well. And they were going after Fox News and the rest of them, which is one of the big reasons that whenever they put Mike Lindell on and on their show now on Newsmax and all of that, they have to put this big ass disclaimer like, yo, these are just opinions of this motherfucker right here. He's not okay. All of that, because they don't want to get drug into this like $1 billion per suit. Says Dominion VP of Engineering Eric Coomer has had anti-USA, anti-police, anti-Trump, and pro-Antifa statements on his Facebook. Look, I mean, I kind of like the guy. Has public testimony of how electronic voting machines can be bypassed and is quoted as having said, "Don't worry about the election. Trump is not going to win. I made fucking sure of that." Yeah. Here's the thing. No. None of that's true. And that's why these folks are being sued for billions of dollars. There were people that were going to this person's house and he was receiving death threats because none of what they put in there was true. And the only place, by the way, that this CEO of Simon & Schuster, the only place he got that from was from a recorded conference call in which somebody said, "This is Eric Coomer." Somebody talking, saying, "This, the person that's going to talk is Eric Coomer." Go ahead, Eric. Tell them all about Antifa. Eric Coomer could probably tell you as much about Antifa as fucking grumpy old dude can, which I'm going to go ahead and guess is not very much. In fact, I know it's not very much. He thinks I'm part of Rose City Antifa. Hilarious. Guys got to learn how to be able to do like a joke. Just because Susan and I are the human resources department and points of contact for Rose City Antifa, which we are. Obviously we are. Doesn't mean that, somebody wrote me a message on a Twitter. I don't know what. Oh, somebody said thank you to me. But that is the person that came in to do the audit in Maricopa County, Arizona, was the person that wrote all the things that I just read, and more, by the way. It's like 3.5 pages of stuff that were, every single one of them were just made up out of thin fucking air. And yet, a couple of them have had real-world consequences for real-world people. But that's who that is, and he's the CEO of P.O. Box Ninjas. He came in and grab that. There we go. Happy to make you laugh. Forgot where I put my little thing. Where did I put it? Right there. There it is. Don't know why I did that. Okay. Because I got to be done here in a little bit anyways. Where did I put that? Here we go. So they brought in this person. Let me go ahead and show this. There we go. So pardon me, let me get to this first. So this was about something that was going to be the most transparent audit of all time. You were going to have every bit of information. We're going to get you everything that you could ever possibly want. You're going to see everything. You're going to have 24-hour views of the cameras. These are all things, by the way, that existed already, that you could already watch whenever the ballots were being counted. You could already do this. But they said, we're going to make it so transparent. I don't really know a joke to that, but it's going to be clear. I was trying to make it like a my skin tone joke, but no, I'm just white. And yet they were being so secretive, and they were making so many mistakes, like going in and using blue pens when they wanted to do audits. And they were changing their methods every single day. That they were forced by a judge, and they were not going to say, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, this is the process. A judge had to force them to do that, to release if they had a Kraken. Sidney Powell joke. Or Susan's hockey team. If anything that they were possibly going to do, and guess what? End up being like 13 pages. Which, again, from an auditing firm that is not, which is why it's an audit, they were not even, they're not qualified, mostly because they're not certified by any election organization, anything that could possibly do any kind of counting whatsoever. You see there, April 29th, which is the same day that they failed to recall the Republican-led, all but one, again, Maricopa County, the folks that I forget the voting people, bad with names this morning. But they had a bevy of organizations that, this is Maricopa County, they were chosen by the supermajority in the GOP Arizona State Senate, which is the GOP. They have the supermajority. No matter what was going to happen, they were going to be able to choose. And this is, and I showed this to Susan. This has again been a couple of months ago. Senator Fan, Karen Fan, had a bevy of organizations she could choose from that were all incredibly qualified. Every single one of them, except for the one that she chose, which was the cheapest. And that's actually... It was going to cost the taxpayers, because audits cost taxpayer money, recounts cost taxpayer money. It's just the way that it goes. Was it $145,000? She had $13 million to use. She chose to go with the cheapest, which just happened to be the private company with links to the former president who had spread election lies and all of that. Without experience, whose founder said he believes Joe Biden stole the election. Also brought in this person. Calls himself Jovan Pulitzer. Except that's not his real name. I actually don't really care what his real name is. You want to call yourself, I don't really care. You haven't won one of those, but who cares? Guy came in, he actually, and Susan and I talked about this, he apparently is famous for making one of the worst inventions ever. Some sort of mouse back in the 90s for your computer. Forget exactly, but that's not really important. But he's also a liar, a lying liar, which I guess lines up really well with everybody that's involved in these organizations and trying to do these things. One of the more recent things was actually in 2021, which was when the Georgia State Senate had a hearing in which, by the way, they classify him as a failed treasure hunter, which you can go with either or. Famous for worst inventions ever, failed treasure hunter. You win some, you lose some. J. Hutton Pulitzer, or Commander Pulitzer, no record of military experience, claimed that he had, quote, hacked Georgia's voting systems. The treasure hunter, which again is what they call him, provided, and this, by the way, this is from secretaryofstate.ga.gov. Okay. The Georgia Secretary of State's office wrote this. Oh, it's the QCAT, C-U-E-C-A-T, a cat-shaped device that, when connected to the computer, allowed users to scan barcodes on ads that would bring up the website where they could purchase the advertised product. There it is. Okay. The treasure hunter provided no evidence during the Senate hearing that he had done that, only saying, "I promise I did." Fake news is hard to combat when mainstream media outlets push it out, but when a small cadre of Georgia legislators do it, it's a whole different story. And that's from Brad Raffensperger in Georgia. These legislators need to stop calling their own re-elections illegitimate and focus on getting out the vote for the January 5th elections. The mistrust they are sowing is depressing turnout. If Senators Loeffler and Perdue lose on January 5th, the Georgia state legislatures have only themselves to blame. I mean, we could maybe consider the Stacey Abrams effect and all that too. But yeah, that's who that person is. And he also said that his technology, what he was going to be able to do with his technology that he made and that he submitted to somebody in Michigan, because they wanted to do recounts as well, was he had basically a DSLR camera, and it would take a photo of the ballot, and that he'd be able, with his technology, to be able to see if it was folded wrong. Because the ways you can tell if somebody folds something, right? Like if somebody is sent a mail-in ballot, why is it not folded? Or if somebody was just coming and bringing in a ballot, why is it folded? It shouldn't be folded. Those are fraudulent. Okay, first off, it's not difficult to see folds and stuff. All right. Secondly, people that get mail-in ballots don't always actually mail their ballots in. Sometimes they go vote in person, which means that their ballot might not have a crease on it. Additionally, if a person gets a ballot while they're standing in line or just standing waiting to give it to somebody, they might fold it. is the things you do subconsciously, unconsciously. When you're conscious, but sub. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. But he was brought on as part of that. So grifters and stuff like that. The folks that were brought in as part of the counting and stuff like that, the counting teams, the auditors, if you will, the people who would regularly lose where they were when they were tracking ballots and would put ballots unrecognizably into different buckets, if you want to call them that. When the Lazy Susans, which is a really interesting name, so would spin around far too quickly for them to be able to keep up. These folks were brought in by partisan means, in that they were chosen by people who were sympathetic to the previous president. Now, I'm not saying that those folks are all, super MAGA, that they're going to purposefully attempt to say that things are wrong or purposefully write things down incorrectly, because that'd be, fraud. But they also had to sign NDAs, which, if we remember back when we were just talking about this a second ago, NDAs are the opposite of transparent, at least as far as I know, because it keeps you from saying things like when you don't know how to run a fucking audit. Just this person right here, 254, that's in Texas. Maybe they're trying to audit me. This audit is dangerously underfunded, said Christina Bobb on OANN. That's the One American News. Imploring those who watch to donate to a 501c4 that she helped to create. We still have no idea how much the audit costs, and this was, of course, back in May, and how much has been spent. They originally quoted the Senate at $150,000. Correct. This person who works for, as it turns out, a private company. And again, One American News, when we talked about the audit being so incredibly transparent, you could watch it 24 hours a day. Yes, you absolutely can. You just got to go to One American News because they're the only ones with any type of cameras allowed in the building. And I say that by saying this. Anybody who was a member of the press originally had to sign up for a shift to go and be a monitor. So basically you audit the auditors. What the press said was, yeah, that don't work that way, bruh. And so they were actually able to force their way in to be able to view the audit from the bleachers of this auditorium. Doing an audit in auditorium. And you couldn't even see down to what they were doing half the time. You'll kind of see this in a moment. But this person had complete access to everything. Got to be on the floor all the time, got to walk around and nearby the people who were counting these ballots. Got to see what they were looking at, see all of their procedures, every single thing. But no other members of the media could do that because they're so transparent. Because the transparency is, I guess, missing parents or something. I don't know. But turns out that she is also linked up with the former CEO of Overstock.com, who wrote a book about elections and fraud and voting fraud, which is hilarious considering his lack of knowledge of said things. But he wrote a book about that, and I believe they also taped or got footage for a movie while they were there. And I wonder, because it took so long, if they also were able to get people from Pennsylvania that came down from, like the lawmakers that came down from Pennsylvania and that came down from Michigan and they came over from Georgia, I wonder if they're also in some of that footage. It would be an interesting thing to look into. Then, of course, there is this. This is on May 3rd, so it's like the same day. So Kyra Haas is a journalist over in Maricopa County. She's the one, I believe, that called out the cyber ninjas for using blue pens. That just chatted with Bennett, Arizona. So Bennett, Arizona is the liaison between the cyber ninjas and the Senate. He didn't have an update on the ballot count, said somewhere between 150,000 and 175,000. Remember, there were 2.1 million, and this is May 3rd. They were supposed to originally be done by May 14th. I asked him about this box, a new addition over the weekend. He said, quote, "It's a server box, and I don't know what exactly it's doing, but I'm curious to find out as well." What an amazingly transparent and not at all freaking just, not at all terrifying thing that the liaison between the Audit and between the Senate GOP has no idea what that obviously connected to the fucking internet machine is or does. Maybe what it was doing was transporting the data from ballots and personal information from people who are registered to vote in the state of Arizona to put them onto a semi-truck trailer and driving them up to private property in fucking Montana, which, let me check Google Maps, not the same place, not Arizona. Private property, this is the fucking thing. Private property, nobody is upset about this, and I don't get it. There is sensitive data, ballot information, and private property which they won't let anybody see in Montana. Part of that is, I get the reason you'd want to do part of that, because most Americans don't know that's even a fucking state. But you have 2.1 million pieces of ballot information, or information for 2.1 million ballots. You wanted to go and canvass the fucking county. You wanted to go and canvass the county. They wanted to go knock on doors and say, hey, did you vote and who did you vote for? They wanted to do that. It's in their fucking procedural manual, that 13-page thing. That's what they wanted to do. You know what that's known as? Voter intimidation. And it violates the Voting Rights Act. That's why they weren't able to do that. And before anybody tells me that I'm maybe I'm just a little riled up, why aren't you? Consider if you are one of the two, you could be one of the 2.1 million that's on private property, 1,000 miles from where you live, doing who the fuck knows what to it, because we don't know, because it's on private property. And they said it was in a special lab or something. A high-tech lab. Yeah. That's not terrifying, is it? But they... Forgot where I was before that. Because it angers me so much. And it's like we just don't talk about it. The rest of this stuff really, it doesn't really matter. Let me just go through it real quick. Here, let me just do this. This guy right here, this one kind of matters though. Let me just go ahead and, this guy's name is Anthony Kern. He's been counting ballots again, and you can kind of see how far back this journalist is. And by the way, this journalist was kicked out of the arena for taking photos. Even though it said if you're the press, you can take photos as long as they're not of ballots. As you can see, no ballots. But this person, this Anthony Kern person, was counting ballots. Even though they said he wasn't going to, but he did, and he was. And there's a problem with that. It's because in Maricopa County, he was on the ballot. In 2020, he was on the ballot and he lost. And yet he somehow was able to go in there. And remember that the liaison between the cyber ninjas and the Arizona State Senate, you think that they would have known and that maybe they shouldn't have let him do that. But again, transparency and all of that cool stuff. Because they told, the reason that we know that Mr. Kern was not supposed to be counting those days was because journalists like Kyra and others had informed the folks that were there that, hey, this might be a conflict of interest. You probably shouldn't let this person fucking do this. Who has, if they would like to, who has more motive and more opportunity to completely mess something up? Now, of course, with that being said, they weren't quote unquote counting this too, by the way. They were only auditing the presidential and Senate elections. The two things the Democrats won. That's it. They weren't auditing anything else. They could see all of it, but they weren't auditing it. Yeah. Not at all partisan, folks. But yeah, this guy, he was there doing that. FYI, if you didn't know, by the way, he was expecting it to really put him back in power by like August 15th or 25th or something like that. But then there's this. The obvious goal, and this was written in May, and it's correct. Philip Bump is correct. The obvious goal of the Arizona recount is injecting more doubt into the 2020 results. And that is correct. But it's not only about injecting more doubt into the 2020 results. They were never going to, as I mentioned, overturn this election. There was no way in any hell that either ever has, does, or will exist. Not possible. What is this? What is this? Did I just forget something? Oh, I did. 9:30 to 10:30. Meh. Guess I probably better attend that, huh? Join via WebEx. Oops. So I'll just go ahead and join that real quick. Yeah, there we are. So, make sure. Sorry about that. Oh, I want to make sure that I'm muted. Okay, I'm muted. My bad. No, I didn't. There's just a Samsung glow up thing that was there. But it was never about overturning this election because they knew they weren't going to be able to. The president, the former president, absolutely believes that it's in some way, form, or fashion, even though the administration knew, as we are aware, in advance that it wasn't going to work. Oh, no inventory. And of course that he had that the former president and the Karen Fann, the GOP leader in the Arizona State Senate, had been speaking via email and even said another constituent warned Ms. Fann in late December that she would be recalled by the Patriot movement for not offering enough support to Mr. Trump. And she said she was doing everything legally possible to get the forensic audit done. I have been in numerous conversations with Rudy Giuliani over the past weeks. I have the full support of him and a personal call from President Trump thanking us for pushing to prove any fraud. So they were coordinating amongst one another. They were helping to raise the money amongst one another. The Trump campaign also helped to raise the money, not to actually pay for the audit. The $5 million and some of that never actually went to pay for the audit. It just went into their pockets. But this is about undermining the elections going forward. That's what this is about. This entire thing is so they can push more restrictive voting laws in the state of Arizona, which they can do immediately because they have a supermajority in the Senate. Arizona State Senate supermajority. It's the reason that Abbott is doing it in Texas, so he can push even more restrictive voting measures. It's why they want to do these audits in Pennsylvania and in Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia for sure. That's why they want to, not because there's any fraud. In fact, that they know that there is not any fraud. They know there's not. They even admitted as such. Admitted as much. Texas Attorney General admitted it, said it out loud, couldn't find any. Back in 2017, the newly inaugurated Donald Trump, President Trump, again, somehow, put together a myth-busting team going out to find the fraud from the 2016 election, going to find it, going all over the place. He got his own team, did former Kansas Secretary of State, former Kansas Governor, don't really know, Chris Kobach, to go and find all the fraud. Well, in January of 2018, that little committee was dissolved after they didn't find anything. They're going to try to say the mail-in ballots did all of this, that it was all the fault of incompetence and there's a lot of fraud and we want to prevent all the fraud and everything. While, of course, looking at a place like Oregon. I actually know if Periscope's even around anymore. But places like Oregon where we have automatic voter registration. Oregon is the only state that has automatic voter registration, sends out ballot packets with information for every single election, and is universal mail-in ballot. Been universal mail-in ballot since the 2000 election, which was incredibly competitive in the state of Oregon. Oregon was one of 3 states that were going to decide the 2000 election. Oregon, New Mexico, and Florida. Fucking Florida. Roger Stone, man. Brooks Brothers riots. For real. Look it up. And we've had that. We've had universal mail-in ballots. 20 years. 2 decades. You know how much fraud they found? About a dozen. And even of those, and I have these links, by the way. I don't have the links to all of this, everything that I've gone over, like the additional stuff. There's so much more. The fact that they couldn't get out of the fucking auditorium by May 14th, even though they were supposed to. So what they had to do, oops, sorry, Benny Barkington. What they had to do was take all of the ballots, which again, they had not been processing them correctly. And so they had no way of auditing themselves, even though that's literally what an audit has to do. They had to put them back onto semi-trucks, which again, a reminder that after that, the semi-truck, one of the semi-trucks, a private one, went and took ballots and ballot information and went up to hit my microphone to private property in Montana. And for all I know, for all you know, for all anybody fucking knows, is still there. Anyways, they put this stuff onto a scared the dog with that. Sorry, Benny. They put this stuff onto a truck and into a non-air conditioned truck in the middle of fucking May in Arizona, into something that was not air conditioned, and they just pulled it in to a warehouse. This, of course, was after, of course, the event center that they were in when they first went in there. They hadn't sealed it properly, so much so that news teams with cameras were able to walk into the building unmolested, walk by stacks of ballots, reach out and pick them up. The reason that they had to be out of there was because, and that was the original agreement, was because high schools were graduating, and that is where they graduate from. That's their facility they graduate. So they had to take them out of there. Then they went back in there. And at this point now, there was a carnival going on in that same parking lot. So now what we have is a truck, a semi-truck, with a trailer that's full of ballots, which they had not been at all tracking and had no way of knowing where to pick up because they weren't sealed properly. Hundreds and hundreds of people outside, not even inside the building doing graduation things, but outside. And they're bringing ballots now back in while there's people out there at the Crazy Clown Carnival. It's the first time that it's ever actually applied in 2 different places at the same fucking time. Yes, Titan. And then they didn't get done. And they didn't get done, and they didn't get done, and they didn't get done. They had to be out of the building again because there was a gun show. They had no tracking mechanism at all in place for this. No, I forget what they call it when they have, like, go from hand to hand to hand. The phrase is in my head and I can't remember it right now, but I think you know what I'm talking about. When you go from beginning to end and you have the full tracking of it. But yeah, it doesn't matter that it says that Joe Biden got more votes and that Donald Trump got fewer votes or whatever. That doesn't matter. It was never about that. It was about making it so it'd be more difficult for people to vote in the future. Oh, what's up, Izzy? Sorry, man. That's what it's about. It's about making things more difficult. And when I say more difficult for people to vote, you kind of know what I'm saying. They don't care about Puerto Rico being a state. In fact, they said it out loud this year. The reason they don't want Puerto Rico to be a state is because they don't want people to be voting Democrat. Wow. That seems like a pretty shitty reason to not give somebody, all the rights and responsibilities that they should already have. They're citizens of this country. And yet they don't have the same rights, and actually the former president doesn't even know or didn't know that they were U.S. citizens. Or the fact that in our nation's capital, the very land that she stands on, the representative of the District of Columbia, she cannot cast a vote in the Senate, even though she represents citizens in our nation's capital who have to pay taxes, even though, as their license plate says, they have no representation. They have voted overwhelmingly recently, people in District of Columbia, to become the 51st state. And yet, the United States Congress continues to deny them that. And the reasoning, at least they're honest about it now, is because they're afraid they're going to vote Democrat. Not only is that a horrible reason for anybody to do something like that, it's only because you understand that the power that you currently have or have had is certainly slipping away from you, and it's why you're talking about gerrymandering things and why you're making it more difficult for people to vote, and we know that. We can tell that because the only states that are doing things like that are the red ones. That's it. The only states that are the 24 states or something like that are passing all of these bills, all these laws, like Arizona is trying to do now too. Look at their legislatures. Tell me what you see. Now look at their constituency and tell me what you see. They're terrified of losing power. And they know that they are. And so they're going to make it so they can keep it as long as they can. That's all this is about. Like this right here, that's it. It is about undermining the foundation of democracy. Not ours. Ours is not unique. But the foundations of democracy. The right to vote is inalienable. But not only that, the right to have representative government. We cannot have representative government if we allow these things to continue to happen. There is so much more that I could get into. The fact that a newspaper is suing the cyber ninjas and they won. That something else was cyber ninjas, stuff like that. Just know that the only reason they do these things is so they can disenfranchise certain voters. Not Izzy, by the way. Izzy doesn't vote. This is a joke, man. Just messing with you. And you should be upset about that. You should be upset about that. I don't care if if I go, like in Oregon, we have free and fair elections here. We have incredibly high diversity in our voter, at least as much as you can in a state like Oregon, because, you know, we like super white by design. And real quick here, sorry. Leave meeting. There we go. We have a high diversity, high voter turnout, things like that. If we had high voter turnout and this was a red state, you know, it's the way it goes. But what we do have is more representative, just like what Minnesota has. It's more representative of the people that do live here. We have high voter, it's not high enough yet. Upper 60s ain't gonna cut it, guys. That's like a F. It's a fail. And don't cut it. But what these folks are trying to do is make it so that it's more difficult to even get to 50%. Because they know if they can continue to disenfranchise voters, if you are Black, Indigenous, any other person of color, they automatically see you as a Democrat. What's funny is that I know that not everybody is BIPOC is a Democrat. I know that. In fact, there are a multitude of Hispanic Americans who either immigrated from Mexico or from Cuba or somewhere like that that are conservative. At the same time, they are disenfranchising what would be their own constituents, their own supporters. But that's what they're trying to do in Arizona. And everywhere else that they are pushing this forward. I had a lot more to say, but obviously I've already been on here for an hour and a half anyways. But it's also 10:15 and I've got to go to work. And I'm still wearing my Twinkie the Kid shirt. It's a pretty sweet shirt. There is so much more. I could do an entire stream talking to people about it, and I don't know that I would. There's over 250 links that are going to be in the document that I'm placing in the description of this video later on. It's extensive and massive. But I would be happy to talk about it with anybody. But right now I have to get out of here because I have to go to work. But I appreciate you for watching if you were live. If you were live, you didn't catch the very beginning, you should go back and check it out. I made like a 7-minute intro video. You're welcome. I mean, I didn't make it. I took videos, put them together, and then put little animations so that they, transitioned and stuff. Basic stuff. Finding some of the videos was difficult, though. Finding the Fox News one was super easy. But that's it for me. It's Friday. Have a good Friday. Right? Yeah, call and email your senators. Make it so that, like, what is it? And your representatives. You're not just your senators, but your representatives and everything. Where did it go? Where did my thing go? Now I'm just sad. I don't know where it went, and now I'm sad. No. Oh, darn. Well, never mind then. I guess I'm not gonna. But it's... Yeah. Since I just hit that and it just went away. Stupid thing. Yeah, it's Dear Nathaniel, thank you for contacting me to share your support for food security programs. And I realize this is like, really it's like a canned response email and everything, but it's also really long. And this is Senator Jeff A. Merkley. He's from here in Oregon. He says, I am also a co-sponsor of the Universal School Meals Program Act, which would permanently provide free breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack to all children throughout the school year. Would also extend eligibility for the summer food service program to all communities across the country and provide direct financial assistance to help families most in need to purchase food during the summer months when schools are closed. And so get in touch with your elected representatives. I don't care if they're Republicans, Democrats, Independents, if they seem to be a Kyrsten Sinema or a Joe Manchin, where they're basically Republicans, even though they say they're Democrats. Nobody should disagree with the statement that children and their families should have food. So something to do. There you go. There's homework for you. All right, love you guys. I'm gonna be late for work. Love you guys very much. Have a great rest of your day. Seriously. Because you're awesome and you deserve to have a good day.